Hey everyone, I hope you had a restful fall break. I can see that many of you have gone back and improved your scores on the identifying conclusions assignment. That's a really important topic in logic and a really valuable communication skill. And I'm really impressed with the tenacity and the hard work that you've shown in improving your scores. Additionally, I am continuing to feel grateful for your flexibility as we navigate this course. We're on our last week of material for this unit, and while figuring out the best plan going forward, I'm taking two things into consideration. First is this. Originally, we were supposed to finish chapter 10 this week and possibly start on chapter 11. Chapters 10 and 11 are basically like the first half of a semester of logic, but pared way down and then squeezed into 4 weeks. That is difficult enough. But with the extra time we spent on identifying conclusions and fall break, we really don't have enough time to get into the rest of that material without sacrificing other content down the road. Additionally, this content is, I think, really interesting. It's really important if you study philosophy or math or computer science. But also, if you study philosophy or math or computer science, you're going to encounter the same stuff again later. So that's the first thing that I'm considering. The second thing that I'm taking into consideration is your responses from the first few weeks of class. Almost half of our class, I think like 15 or 16 students, explicitly mentioned that you hoped to learn how to argue better, either more productively, less emotionally, or with less hurt feelings on both sides. And I'm willing to bet that even more students have that interest, even if you didn't state it explicitly when I asked what you hoped to gain from this class. So I'm taking those two things into consideration. And I want to turn this week into an opportunity to delve into a really critical skill, which is how to argue productively and empathetically. So we have 3 readings this week. The first reading is an article about arguing productively from a philosophical standpoint. It's written by a really wonderful philosophy professor at, I think, Vanderbilt. And I'd like for you to read that article closely, but don't get concerned about the philosophical jargon and concepts that are really unfamiliar. So read it closely, but focusing on the parts that connect to what we've already learned in this class. The second reading is a really short article from the New York Times. It moves away from the philosophical jargon and it gives a few brief considerations for how to be more productive when it comes to conflict in our daily lives, whether it's arguing about politics or whose turn it is to do the dishes. So I'm asking you to skim that article, just look for the big takeaways. And then the third reading is longer, but I think it's really valuable and it's a really quick, breezy read. It's a few short chapters from a book about an approach to communication called nonviolent communication. I come back to these chapters every time I'm feeling distressed about an interaction with another person, whether I've done something that resulted in someone else feeling hurt or when I've felt hurt as a result of someone else's actions. And certainly anytime I have had an argument or a disagreement with someone, or if there's an upcoming conversation that I'm feeling a little bit nervous about, I come back to these chapters over and over again. And I'm asking you to come to them just once. So just read these once casually, a little more closely than a skim. But again, it's a pretty easy, simple read. So do that reading and then complete the short exercises at the end of each chapter on your own. I think that's it for the readings. There's no graded work for this week, but those readings will appear in some form on the assessment. And that takes me to my last point, which is your final task for this week. Given all the changes that we've made, I'm not convinced that a typical assessment is the best way for you to demonstrate what you've learned and what you're taking away from this class for the past few weeks. So I want you to vote on what you think would be the best assessment for Unit 2, either a traditional assessment with multiple choice and a few short answer questions, or a written assessment, which would be like a short one-page reflection on this unit's materials. And that prompt would have somehow touch on all of the different weeks, but mostly focus on you sharing what you're taking away from this unit. So there will be no difference in points between those two options. They'd all be open note. It would be similar in terms of the amount of time I want you to spend on it. I'm not asking you for 100 multiple choice questions or for a 5-page essay. So you would still be spending hopefully the same amount of time either way. It's really about your preference, but also what you think is the best way for you to demonstrate what you've learned over these past few weeks. So I'm only going to create one assessment. Whichever one gets the most points by Monday evening will be the assessment that everyone takes next week. Okay, so this week, you are going to complete these readings that I like, so that I really like, I hope you like, and then you're going to answer this really short survey about what type of assessment you think would be best for this unit. There is no graded assignment this week. I am expecting that everyone will complete these readings, however. And on Tuesday morning, I'll post an announcement regarding the assessment that you've voted on. So that's it. Thank you for your work in this class, and please reach out with any questions or concerns, and have a great week.